Hello and welcome to this edition of Rust Room, and I'm really excited to have this conversation we're about to have. I've gotten to know our guest over the past few years. Great guy with very innovative ideas about practice, especially corrective care practice. This is Dr. Fred DiDomenico. So Fred, thanks number one for taking the time to be with us here today.
Hey, my pleasure. Truly honored, man. You know, I've got to learn, build a relationship with you through UAC, and our paths seem to have crossed a bunch like this over the last few years. So it's like, okay, let's just make this official.
I love it. As a matter of fact, I think you're wearing a UAC shirt. You got
yeah, we got one here. Everybody, thank you very much.
Ultimate Achievers Club.
Yep,
so you're representing today. I like it.
Yep, did it with intention.
Right on, man. So let's start with your journey a bit. What got you into chiropractic? How'd the whole thing unfold for you?
You know, I don't have any great healing story or anything. I was raised in an Italian Catholic home. So even though we practice religion, it was very spiritual during the week, religion on Sunday. But so I always grew with a spiritual relationship. And I was at a point, I was down at San Diego State. I was actually working in a physical therapy clinic, the team doctors for the Chargers and the Clippers, and the big team owned it. So I was working with these athletes. I'm thinking, man, I'm going to go into physical therapy, but you know how it is, man. We're not called to do that. Something was just holding me back. So I just prayed, and all of a sudden I got a pamphlet from LECC, and I'm like, chiropractors don't know crap. I threw that away, and then I got a second time, and I threw it away. They don't know crap as I'm looking at it in the trash can. Maybe they do know something. And then in my life, whenever I pray for something and something appears 3 times, I know God's talking to me. So I got a third one. I'm like, okay, I need to look at this. So I just basically, make a long story short, went into chiropractic school. It was funny, the day I interviewed, I sat there with the board or whatever. And I'm like, I have no idea what chiropractic is. I just know I'm supposed to be here, and I know I'm supposed to do something big. And that was it.
And that was it. So you entered LACC, and so you came through LACC, and then where did that lead you? Like, how did the journey start once you get out of school?
Well, basically, I got pissed off right from second term, being at LACC, and ended up at DE, man. And then when I found the principal, then it was all downhill from there. It's like you never question the principle. It's truth. It's universal law. You take it in every cell of your body. As soon as you hear it, it's truth. You never question it. And you were there. I mean, back in the day when there was 2,000 people, man, you had Jim Sigafus and all these guys. A small practice was 1,000 a week for all the people that were up on stage. So we just thought 1,000 a week, that was just normal.
Yeah, it was. That was quite a time at DE in the heyday. I mean, so many. My original field doctor was Dick Santo, who you probably have seen there.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then, you got to remember, like Bob Sotilli and Jim Gregg, John Hoffman. This Sid, obviously, who formulated the whole thing. But it was quite an experience, being there and being around those types of people. So we got dipped at DE basically, and it never leaves you. I mean, it's in there.
Oh my God, I owe everything. I was talking to Ben Lerner. We were just at Cal Jam, and it was me, Billy, my buddy John. He's 1,000 a week up here in Washington, and then Ben Lerner, and the 4 of us used to hang out. And this was, we were just a bunch of friggin' punks back then, fired up about chiropractic. And then you look, and now all those people are leading today. But I had a conversation with Ben. It's at that time where our conviction was so high that never left. I mean, I owe everything and my unwavering conviction to those days.
So talk about that a little bit. The whole idea of conviction, if you will, the idea of what it means to have conviction. How do you see it? And when you say, that's where my conviction came from, what do you mean by that?
Well, my own personal thing is chiropractic is a calling. We're a spirit in a physical body, and your spirit came here to do something, and you have a message that changes humanity. One thing we teach in Elite, there's 4 subconscious beliefs. So if you understand these on a subconscious level, your ability to influence people is huge. Number 1, chiropractic is a universal law. Anytime you are aligned with the universe, you have the universe at your assistance. The second thing is, and that's chiropractic is a universal truth. The second thing is when another spirit hears that truth, they're drawn to it. So every person that stands in front of you, if you think you got to learn to talk to their heart. When you're speaking that truth, their spirit is drawn to you. Now you just have to know the tools to get them past their frontal lobe. But they know they want to be in a program. They're just trying to get past their own stuff so they can move into your program. When you see it like that, then you realize it's not an objection. It's only a thought. They're giving you a gift and an open door. When you clear that objection, they're going to move right into lifetime care. The third one is everybody wants to be in a relationship with you. It's the spiritual law of unity. Chiropractic also aligns with the spiritual law that the innate in me is the same and innate in you. We're automatically connected. You're standing in front of me for a reason. I have a universal law that I'm communicating, and we're supposed to be together. Right? And the fourth one is that another being really wants to be in relationship with us. That's why they're standing in front of us.
So this is interesting. So, and this is where the outgrowth, I guess, of that conviction saying that, this is truth. This is a higher truth. And it's something that the lack of this truth in our culture translates into a lot of people getting sick and dying unnecessarily. But now translating that conviction into action in a practice is a whole other deal, which is, I think, what your specialty is. You founded Elite Coaching, and I can tell you that I know you personally know members in your program, some of which are in our Ultimate Achievers Club that we're all in together. But their minds get blown when they learn your communication strategy, especially I think in day one, day two, and the way that you approach things and how you kind of sequence it to get the message through to the patient. So can you maybe overview some of that?
Well, part of that is how do you see yourself? The thing is, we want to create a lifetime patient. Patients don't come in, ready to be lifetime patients. So they have this they come in neuro-emotionally wired. And so when you have those four subconscious beliefs, they want to be in there. Now you just need the tools to get them past their limiting beliefs. Everybody has an empowered resource. And as a coach, it's our job to take that empowered resource, to find it, help them feel it in their body, and then bring it out. Now you can change your life. So really, my perspective is, and what we teach, and I think this is the truth, is chiropractors are really empowered, self-empowerment coaches, because you're taking a person and you're teaching them how to find an inspirational resource to live their life differently. So you don't get to be a great chiropractor until you can be a great self-empowerment coach first. You know what I mean? So when you change their mindset, now they become a lifetime patient. If you're going to change their mindset, man, they go back out in the world. It's like a lamb going out in the wolves, man. I mean, look at all the vaccination laws that are changing, GMO foods. We live in a different world. If they're not strong, they're going to go back and their kids are going to get vaccinated. Are they even bringing their kids in? Are they finding the resources to live their life differently? And so all I've done is I went outside of chiropractic because I couldn't find it in there. And I studied from world-class leaders and influencers. I've been a life coach for 10 years studying NLP. I really I thought, who's the most powerful one of the most powerful influencers in the world? And that was Tony Robbins. I went through Tony Robbins coaching, not his coaching group, but learning what he does. How do you take a person that's suicidal? He's had thousands of suicidal people and hasn't lost one. What's he doing? How does he heal marriages? How does he get people, UPW, Unleash Power Within, 5,000 people at 9 a.m. and by 1 a.m. the next morning, 16 hours, you got 5,000 people walking across 2,300 degree coals and less than 1% burn their feet. And you didn't know who they were. You never even interacted with them. I thought, what if we could get chiropractic patients to want to walk across fire to change their life? So all I did was study what he's doing. So anyway.
So, okay. And this is fascinating. So what are some of the, the most profound things that you learned in that study? I think, I love the logic of saying, who's out there influencing people? And I think the issue is exactly right, is saying, what are you trying to do? You're trying to transform the way people think and therefore the way they act as a consequence of that. You change their thinking, you change their actions. And so you went out to study it. So what were some of the major takeaways, and how did you translate them into chiropractic practice procedure?
Well, first of all, I walked across that fire. Like, I'm sure, I don't know if you've done a fire walk.
I've done a fire walk with Tony Robbins. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, it's a good thing there's not a brick wall at the end of the fire, because we'd break our big Italian nose on that brick wall as we ran through it. And what it teaches you is your mind can do anything. Where you are before that fire and where you are after that fire are two different places. And every person has that in them. Now, how do we bring it out? So what are the breakthroughs? Man, it's systems. You know, you're up in Park City, friggin' love skiing, right? I say, I want to be a bump skier. So what I do, I went to a mogul camp and I got trained by the US freestyle team. Well, you know what? It's friggin' system. What Tony Robbins does is a system. He pauses at every comma. He has intention. One of the things that we're making as a template is 7 steps to mastering change. We just put out a 7-step video series. I mean, if you take these people through 7 steps, and it's an emotional cycle, it's a day 1, day 2, is you got to take them into suffering, man. They have to feel pain. Pain is when their model doesn't match their world. So what your impression doesn't match what's going on in your world. Well, that could be back pain, but suffering is when your model doesn't match and you're powerless to change it. That means you can't change it. See, that's a subluxated spine. You have to do something outside yourself, or your pain is going to continue to get worse. That's suffering. See, chiropractic's been great at pain. Your model doesn't match your world. Suffering is an emotional condition. And if you can't take people to that emotional level where they say, I'm done, I can't do this on my own, I need your help, I trust you, I believe this program is the answer that's going to give me the life I want. If you can't take them to that point, now many people will say that, but then they say, well, I didn't know it was going to cost that much, right? So they'll say that on day 1, day 2. The problem is, you're taking them into suffering. You're taking them to a lower emotional place where they have a problem and they're bummed. Now, what we do is you give those recommendations at day 2 or a workshop, then you're getting them at a lower emotional state. And you're hoping that they have an empowered resource on their own to make a healthy decision. But the reality is, and this was tested through kinesiology, 78% of human beings function at a weakening consciousness. It's 80-20 rule. So some of those people, victims, hopeless, there's all these emotional tones that you take them down, you show them their problem, but they don't know how to get to that emotional resource that takes them into empowered action. Now that's what Tony Robbins does. He takes you through suffering to clear limiting beliefs. Like he takes you through suffering, then he puts you in a high state. So he's conditioning a high state. So an emotional cycle has an upside. The last few hours before you walk across the fire, he's teaching you the whole time how to get into peak state. So we have a 3-day system, day 1, day 2, takes them into suffering. So they say, I don't want to be like this anymore. I can't change it. I need your help. Day 3 gets them into a very high peak state. How do we do that? Well, we do 20, 30-year health and life goals. I mean, it's already worked in there. We have the workshop. We have a brief 5-minute ROF. We get them so committed. NLP, what's the highest vibration? You get them on who they're becoming, identity. Famous quote from Tony, people don't buy products or services, they buy identity. Right? We're trying to sell them chiropractic, when in really what we should be doing is selling on who they're becoming subluxated and who are they becoming unsubluxated. And we focus on identity and their purpose in their life. You find that empowered resource that everybody has, and you can get them so committed to the life they want. And then all of a sudden that subluxation says, I can't live it. Now they feel so empowered in their body, and they look at that, they absolutely will not go back there. In fact, there's a step in there in 7 steps. The 3rd step is once we get them so committed to the life they want, and you can see their posture's different, they're fully feeling this in their body, then they look back at their x-ray. And then you go, can you actually live this life? And their body language, I don't ever want to be like that again. Like they never want to go back there. Now we lay them on a dental roll because we're corrective care. We actually show them a corrected x-ray. So now you have proof that they can get it. Now you give them time and money. But if you don't get them into a peak state, they're not going to have the emotional resource. I'm not talking about financial resource. They're not going to have the emotional resource to find the money, make it happen, bring their family, and live their life differently.
You know, it's interesting. This is not, because some people look and say, well, is this maybe emotional manipulation, etc.? But really, it's almost what you said earlier. You become a personal empowerment coach. It's really, people, I think, come from weakness too often in their life, and they are out of touch with reality to a degree. They have a lack of confidence in themselves many times to make decisions. And by taking them through a systemized process that leads them to a state of empowered choice, where they can now look and I love the way that you were characterizing a lot of this, looking back, saying, is that a way you want to be? Is that something you can live with, in essence? Where they can identify, and because you're asking a question when you're doing that, you're not telling them you shouldn't. You're not trying to be a parent. You right. shouldn't live that way. You can't live that way. It's not. It's asking them. It's telling them the facts of the matter, and asking them the questions, the right questions that bring their attention to the things that they need to consider before they make a final decision about engaging in care. Is that? Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, we have a little one-liner, or actually it's 2 lines. And the problem with chiropractic is we've told them what to think, when really we need to teach them how to think. And when you look at big volume practitioners, you don't have time to talk. Part of the reason your practice is stuck is you're freaking telling people what to do. And that's what I learned. That's the difference between, consulting and coaching. You can't make anyone do anything, but you can help them help themselves. So when you realize, when I say self-empowerment coach, people want to live that life. They just don't, it's just not a reality for them. And so when you empower them, if people doubled their practice and you'd have to talk twice as much to make people make their appointments, you'd kill your practice. You wouldn't maintain it. But if you empowered people to make them want to be there, you could see twice as many people, talk 1/3 as much, and have it be way more easy and fun because they're coming for themselves. That's the life coaching model. They're not coming for you. It's not personality driven.
Right. So what's interesting, and I'd like, maybe you to kind of share the experience in a moment of what it's like, to see a high volume, 1,000 patient visits a week, what that feels like going inside. Because it's almost like, for everybody that's watching, I'd like to paint the picture and say, if you're in pain in a small practice, if you're suffering, to use your term, and I always like the old Buddhist adage, in life, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Yeah, right. That's exactly correct.
So the question is, are you going to continue to suffer? It's an option. Are you going to continue to suffer, or maybe it's time to move out of what you've been tolerating in your suffering for however long it's been? But let's look at the other side of this, because for a lot of people, it's almost an inconceivable thing. What's it like to be in a practice that does, a large volume, 1,000 visits a week or something like that?
Well, I never saw 1,000 at 700. We were through 700, and one day I looked at my schedule. There's 232 people on there, and I thought, man, I'm about 3 months away from 300 a day. I mean, I knew I could add 100 people a day in 3 months because I was doing all this. And the reality is, not only do people commit, they bring their family. I mean, 1 into 3 was so predictable that it almost became easy. And I figured, I'm going to hit 300 a day, 1,000 a week. And I got about 10,000 people driving by my office today. And then I realized I'm not even touching my community. And so that's when I literally prayed and I said, God, there's got to be something bigger. 1.5 years later, I was coaching. But what it was at that point, it was so easy that over 700 a week was easier than 400 was easy. People talking about pain, 200 a week is pain. You know what I mean? Or 150 is more pain, because what's the mindset of the people at that level? on average. I'm not judging anybody's practice, and I'm not saying volume is any more or less pain, but typically higher volume people, you know, the chiropractor at 1,000 a week, they're very spiritually based. I mean, I believe you had that type of practice, didn't you?
No, I never hit 1,000 a week. I mean, I saw also a pretty good volume of people, and I will tell you that every time my practice doubled, it felt better and easier than when it was smaller. Because see what happens, I think, and this is the misnomer, is that when people, chiropractors speaking now, if they're at 125, 140, whatever, 100 a week, you know, even less than 100 a week, many of them, the idea when they look at what it feels like to be there and the drag that's on the system there, they feel like, well, doubling my practice, you know, would double that pain. And it's one of the things I think that's a flaw in their logic that keeps them away from doubling the practice. I can remember, you know, and it's what got me, you talk about kind of like the thing that got you onto a new track. When I was in practice and I was in my, you know, mid 20s, you know, at the time, and my practice was growing. As I said, I came to an end of a year and I wanted to set my goals for the next year. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to double my practice next year. I was already doing okay. And I remember the thought occurred to me, I'll die.
Yeah.
I was 25 years old, and I'm like, if I double this, I'm exhausted now because every day it felt like this. I got to convince him. I got to get him to understand this. It was so much heavy lifting that just on the sheer force of my own will to want people to get this, to understand it, etc., that, you know, I was lifting a certain amount of people into that every single day or week. But if I have to double it, and then I realized my own contradiction, because why was it so hard to be so convincing? And I realized, is it because I'm having them understand innate philosophy, subluxation, you know, the devastating effects of subluxation on human health, why their kids need to come, all the things that we understood. But when it came time to examine them, I was doing orthopedic neurological tests, which were a contradiction to what I was teaching them, and to try to, and that's why it was so convinced. I got to convince. I got to tell. I got to compel you, and that's what got. And it was at that time, you talk about, you know, praying and having things show up. When Chris Kent walked into my office with a little Surface EMG, a handheld unit, and he explained what it did, and I grabbed it. I said, "Let me see that thing," and I started playing with it, and that's where the whole insight got born. And next thing you know, I found myself out of practice and developing technology, because I realized, growing in the absence, in the style of practice I did, in the absence of having a congruency between what I was thinking, saying, and doing, was so critical. And you know, so it's exactly, you know, kind of, I think the story is similar, is that you have this kind of impression of, you know, grow, let's keep growing. And that in some respects, if your systems aren't right, it will get very exhausting. But in other respects, you know, it was much easier to see higher volume than lower volume, as far as just the way it felt spiritually and the amount of energy I can draw to make it happen.
Yeah, there's a few things on that just real quick. Number one, you can't do the same systems where you're at and double your practice. You know, the system you do at 150 will not work. You will never get to 300. And if you do touch it, it's because you're somehow, I don't know, you got lucky, but you're not going to stay there. And it's a different mindset. So to get to the next level, the mindset has to change first, and then the systems have to match. So even at, you know, the difference between 250 and 400 is massive in mindset. The difference between 400 and 600 is like another galaxy. The difference between 600 and 800 or 1,000, you're not even, I mean, you're just on a whole nother spiritual level. So if you think you're going to double your practice and work too hard, you're not going to get there. And that's the first thing. There was a couple other things that seemed pretty important at the time, but
if they occur to you, let us know.
Yeah, we'll get
and I think that is a part of it. I mean, your processes and procedures definitely, and team, you know, which is a part of that, have to, you know, be aligned with doing that type of volume in your practice, for sure. You know, so if, in other words, if you're doing 40-minute reports, you know, that's got to change, right?
Yeah, certainly scheduling and all this. Yeah, all the systems have to match, and you can't do it without an inspired team. You know, when I look at Elite, we got 5 pillars. The first one we start on is creating an inspired team, man. Let's have an organized, united team. It's always being before doing, because doing without the right intention is just hard work. So it's let's get the consciousness of the team up. It's unity in consciousness and then unity in action. Let's get the mindset up. Let's get the energy of the team right. Now let's have systems that are easy and flow. So, and that's the next thing is if your systems aren't easy or you feel like you're working hard, there's a fault in your systems. And that's it. If you feel like you're working, something's not right, because it's really not work. It just takes intention. And, it's got to be simple. And that's why when I started coaching, the biggest awareness that I had that I didn't know before practicing was chiropractors are people too. Like, I didn't realize that. I thought once you put DC behind your name, you left your shit at the door, pardon my language.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, wow, chiropractors are people. God, I never knew that. Like, they have the same thoughts people do. And that's why that you run into all the objections. And so I realized that
we're not aliens from another planet.
I know. Yeah, I thought, because we hung out at DE, man, so I didn't know any different. But that's where I really had to bring in life coaching to expand the mindset of people. And, like our boot camps is such a mindset and systems communication shift that people go home. I mean, we guarantee it's easy to grow 30, 50% within 90 days after our boot camps. And people go break records the first week back because the mindset of them and their team is so phenomenally different that you just draw people in like a magnet. And that's a spiritual principle.
Right on. So if people want to get more information about Elite Coaching, I think you told me the URL is elitecoachingllc.com.
Yep.
And is there a way to contact you through that vehicle, et cetera?
Yeah, or people can just call me directly. You just call my number. It's 253-851-8353. That's my coaching line. Just give me a call if you have any questions. I mean, I like just develop it like you. We're all about relationships. It doesn't matter. It's not about Elite Coach. It's not about anything. It's about helping chiropractors transform the profession and bring in the general public. Right
on. And personally, I'm looking forward. I'm coming to present to your group in June, so I'm very much looking forward to that in Denver. So, I was you had one session in Park City I was able to stop by for and kind of hang out with some of the guys for a while. Great group of guys you have there, incidentally. Just a terrific group of chiropractors. So, looking forward to June. So, any final words or thoughts you have for the people who are watching us?
I think probably the most important thing is, purpose gives you fuel. Purpose doesn't make you successful. It just gives you the jet fuel that keeps you going no matter what. And I think, like, when you look at you and a lot of the great leaders, we had purpose, so we did what it took. We didn't do what was comfortable. We did what it took. And when you realize your soul has come here in this physical body with a message that can change humanity, then put yourself aside, because people have a vision in their spirit. And I know, and this is probably with you too, my greatest fear would be not doing that. So we're willing to cross anything, because to not do what's in your heart would be the most pain. And I'm not willing to experience that.
Yeah, that is the thing that keeps me awake at night. Is the thought of not just not fulfilling my purpose or my potential, and it's kind of, it's not like sometimes admittedly it's an angst. It really is this sort of feeling of angst to get it done. And very often a lot of people have looked at me and say, "Well, God, look at all the stuff you've done. I mean, can't you relax now?" And I feel like I'm just getting started. I don't feel like I've scratched the surface yet, and because there's so much work to do. So I appreciate your thoughts and your words on that, and just your spirit in general. Whenever I come across you always have this bright, very kind of positive sense about you that that makes you feel like the world's a good place to be in. So I appreciate that about you, and appreciate what you do for chiropractors every day of your life.
Well, thanks, brother. I mean, obviously you evolve at a level of consciousness that, I have huge respect for you, and you're the same thing, man. You're a beacon. you and Lori, you both you emit white light because of your consciousness. And that's why you draw so many people and are doing great things. So, hey, it's great to come together and be part of the stuff that you're doing as well.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you face to face in June, unless you come out to do some skiing. I'm looking at my window. I got powder coming down right now out here in Park City. There's plenty of bumps for you.
Yeah, cool.
So for all you listening, this is one you probably want to watch a couple of times. There's really some deep-rooted things here that should speak to you. And I think this is a great moment to kind of pause and reflect and kind of get a sense of who you are. And I think, the question is who you are where you are? Do you feel like there's a disconnect? And if there is a disconnect, it's time to start putting those two things together. So with Dr. Fred DiDomenico, I'm Dr. Patrick Gentempo. Thanks for watching Rust Room. Keep your eyes open for I love putting these out there to you. So keep your eyes open for more coming down the road. Take care, everybody.
Peace.